Have you ever been trapped in a place that doesn't make you happy? Maybe a place where you're always tired. Maybe a place that doesn't treat you fair. And you cannot just simply escape those places. In your desperation, you have turned to God. And even though you know that He's right there for you, He doesn't seem to hear you. Which brings us to the question, is God deaf? If you want to know more about this topic, stay with me because we're going to talk about it today. If you've ever been in that position, I want you to check out this story with me. We're going to talk about the Israelites. As we know, the Israelites were the people of God. And the Bible says that these people were in slavery under the Egyptians for many, many years. That was a while ago. But you must be wondering, how did they get to that place? To that place of bondage and slavery. The Bible says that many, many years ago, between 1,800 and 1,000 years before Christ, back in those days, there was a great famine in the land. People didn't have food, people didn't have anything to eat, including the people of God. But God didn't leave them by themselves. He led His people to the only nation that had gathered enough resources for that season back in those days, which was Egypt. Egypt, back in those days, they were pretty friendly. So they took the Israelites and they shared their food and they shared their land with them. It's kind of like that really nice neighbor that lives next door. Hey, what's up, neighbor? Please come in, please come in. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, just take a seat. Are you thirsty? I mean, I have Coke, I have water, Dr. Pepper. Do you want a Sprite? But not everything could be so good. The Bible says that as time went by, the people of God started multiplying. They started growing the nation and they started having a lot of kids. Just like us as Mexicans, we love to have big families. Hey. If you're Mexican, don't be all offended. You know what I'm talking about. And so as the people of God grew in number, also the fear of the Egyptians grew. Because they thought to themselves, if these people keep growing, they're going to be more than us. And they could easily overtake our land and all of our possessions if they would want to. So they thought of a brilliant idea. Hey, why don't we just make them our slaves? Now that they're weak and before they grow? Do you think that's a good idea? So that is exactly how the people of God became slaves. And I want to give you a point here. Everything that tries to keep you captive in your life or make you feel like you're a slave is rather because those circumstances are inferior than you or because they're afraid of the potential that lives within you. Just like the Egyptians were afraid of the Israelites. And I don't know about you, but when people say the word slavery, it's kind of funny, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of school. I have no idea why. Hey, you in the back, stop talking, get back to work. One way or the other, the people of God found themselves in a situation they didn't want to be in. They were unhappy. They were probably tired from all the hard work they had to do as slaves. They found themselves in a really unfair deal where they were collecting a lot of riches for somebody else and getting nothing back. They were broken spiritually and physically. You want to know why they were broken spiritually? Because in their desperation, they cried to their God. The same God that had brought them there in the first place. And you know what God did? He didn't seem to listen for a quite long period of time. For about 400 years, God didn't seem to listen. How would you feel if God will leave you stuck in a situation for a quite long time? The Bible mentions that thanks to the hard work of their slaves, the Egyptians started becoming a richer nation. They started gathering a lot of goods, especially gold and silver. And I want you to remember those two because we're going to talk about those two later on today. And I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me. Have you ever seen an Egyptian back in old days? We all know the story, and we know that at the end, God delivered His people through a man named Moses. Moses delivered the people through the 10 plagues. I'm going to mention them to you real quick, and I'm going to tell you an interesting fact of each one of them. Ready? Alright, plague number 1, blood. As an interesting fact, it says that the people used to drink water from the river, but Moses turned the river into blood, and it stink. Plague number 2, frogs. The Bible says that the frogs were so many, as an interesting fact, that they have to pile them every day, like in the corner. And of course, they would also stink. Plague number 3, lice or gnats. And excuse my pronunciation here, but the Bible says, as an interesting fact, that all the dust of the land of Egypt became like those things. I really hope that these guys have pavement on their streets. Number 4 were flies. And as an interesting fact, the Bible says that the flies will not bother the Israelites, they will only bother the Egyptians. A little bit racist. Number 5 is the pestilence of the livestock. And same thing, the Bible says that it will not affect the Israelites' livestock, only the Egyptians. Number 6 was boils. The Bible says in this one, as an interesting fact, that Pharaoh had wizards and magicians that would copy Moses' past plagues. But at this point, they were like, man, I don't know how he does it. Number 7, thunderstorm of hell. The Bible says, as an interesting fact, that it didn't only rain hail, it also rained fire with it. Number 8, locusts. For this one, as an interesting fact, the Bible says that you couldn't see anything green back in Egypt in those days because the locusts had ate it. Those guys were hungry, man. Number 9, darkness for 3 days. As an interesting fact, the Bible says that in this fog, it was so thick that you could touch it. Number 10, and last one, the death of the firstborn. The Bible says, as an interesting fact, that not before and not after times is gonna be a big cry like it was that day in Egypt. Immediately after the 10 plagues, Pharaoh was ready to let the people of God go. But before they go, God gave Moses a specific instruction. He told Moses, he didn't say it like that, but he told him, Moses, before y'all go and before y'all leave Egypt, go back and take all the gold and silver that you guys produced for the Egyptians when you were in slavery. Moses was something like, yeah. Finally, when the Israelites left Egypt, they were carrying with them all of the gold and silver that they had produced for the Egyptians when they were in slavery. And you must be wondering, why would they need this stuff if they're going towards the promised land that God had for them? And the answer is very simple. God knew that they were going to face new challenges along the way to the promised land. So God asked Moses to build the Ark of the Covenant, which was like a box where God can be represented physically. The Bible says that the presence of God was represented in that box, and they needed to build it for him. And you know what materials they needed to build in? That's right, they needed the gold and precious metals to build the Ark of the Covenant, where God was going to leave, while he will carry them to the promised land. And I would like to finish with this. We have all been slaves in life, me and you. And I'm not talking about exterior slavery, I'm talking about slavery from the heart, slavery in the inside. Maybe you are in slavery right now. Maybe you are at a moment in your life where you're not happy and you're tired from all the hard work that you have to do. Maybe you feel that all good things that you produce, all the good things that you produce go to somebody else's benefit while you receive nothing back. Maybe it's a relationship in your life. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's your family. I don't know what the slavery looks like in your life. But I know this. I know that God is not deaf, and he hears you, and he sees you. And I know that he will deliver you. But you gotta understand that he will not deliver you until you have been in the place where you're gonna gather all of the resources and strength that you're gonna need for later on in your life. Just like the Israelites. God is gonna take you to a place where you're gonna gather the stuff that you need for you to build a place in your heart for him. And we'll have the strength to keep walking to the promises that he had for you, or he has for you. If you're in a place of tears and cry, remember this. Remember that God sees all things, so don't lose hope. He is with you. And also remember that there's only one that can turn those tears and cry into silver.